Independent Electoral Commission has set aside the 17th and 18th of July for voter registration ahead of the October 27th local government elections. The IEC decided to facilitate voter registration on one weekend instead of the usual 2 installments due to budget constraints, we're told. So the Commission says it's targeting young, first-time voters in the months leading up to the registration weekend. Those wanting to cast their ballots will be able to update their information during office hours at IEC offices until the proclamation of the poll. But how will this all pan out? Well, let's chat to Mawethu Mosery. He's the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer for Outreach. Mawethu, thanks very much for your time. It's great to chat to you again on Newzroom 405. So I want to just hone in on one of the facts that I just mentioned. We are moving to having one voter registration weekend. How do you think this will impact on things like voter turnout?
Morning, Ayanda. Morning to your viewers. Indeed, we have one registration weekend. Obviously, we are constrained by the impact of the pandemic itself on the election program as well as the budgetary constraints. So it is the one and only weekend for these general elections 2021. We do believe that voters would continue with the trend for local government, where we've seen a steady increase in voter turnout and voter activity, more so because local government deals with local issues, local politics, local service delivery, and therefore it is closer to our homes, to our work, to where we reside, where we want to see immediate change. However, we would be concerned with more the environment of this election and other related matters. But in terms of the one weekend, we should be able to encourage the young and first-time voters to go register. We have already started in partnership with basic education, where we visited a number of high schools and schools where we find learners 16 and above to be motivated towards participation in our electoral democracy. And we are working now with also tertiary institutions and FETs to conduct a registration drive.
Right.
And soon we will indicate, Ayanda, a mechanism to facilitate easy registration for the young voters who are able to access internet and other platforms like those to register.
You mentioned the environment in which the polls take place themselves. Of course, top of mind is COVID-19 for many people. In the lead up to the 17th and the 18th of July, predictions are that our trends would have intensified. In other words, it's either we would have just emerged from a surge or heading towards one. Take me through what considerations you are making in anticipation for that.
You would be aware, probably as viewers as well as yourself, Ayanda, in the media room, that we've been in continuous communication with political party leaders, and we've been listening to their views in reference to the impact of the pandemic on these elections. On the other side, we've had continuous engagements with the state departments, particularly the health department, to just look at all the trajectory observations of the pandemic and the virus. We do anticipate this, and we would take different decisions if it becomes impossible to hold a free and a fair registration weekend on the 17th and 18th of July. But at this stage, in the recent consultation, it was all systems go for the 17th and 18th of July.
Yeah. Let's speak more about the issues of this being a free and fair registration weekend potentially. It's one opportunity, and I imagine
Correct.
that being the grounds for a lot of contestation for people who happen not to be available on the 17th and 18th of July. How is the IEC covering its back if ever there were to be accusations that this simply wasn't fair?
Well, we have announced it a bit earlier than usual in order that all the citizens can plan to find time to go and update their details on the voters' roll, but also the first-time voters will be able to go and register and plan for that weekend. But secondly, as I indicated, we have been working with communities or sectors where we find young first-time voters to also encourage them to register upfront. I may add then, Ayanda, that registration of voters can actually take place as we speak at our local offices in municipalities. If as a voter you find an opportunity to be there, you are able to register as a voter. And post the registration weekend, we've indicated that voters can visit our offices to go and register. But in terms of registration being brought closer to you at your community, it is only the 17th and the 18th of July that we'll have to use. Lastly, we will come back to the citizens of this country with a possible application for registration to be a voter online, which will facilitate access even for first-time voters. People already on the voters' roll who want to update their addresses can still do so by just creating a profile of themselves on our website, and they can then upload their new address online without having to visit any of our offices. So these are all the platforms that we are creating just to support the one registration weekend.
Sure. Speaking about, call it, alternative arrangements being made, I know there's been a lot of talk about perhaps extending the grounds upon which special votes can be cast in an effort to try mitigate congestion at the actual polls come voting time. Take me through how far those discussions are. I remember they had been raised initially by some political parties who are against us voting this year, and so this was kind of an intermediary, extending special votes to include other definitions so that not everyone needs to actually rock up at the polling station.
Certainly, Ayanda and viewers, we received a number of proposals, particularly from those political parties who were supporting that we proceed with the elections within its constitutional period on which it should take place, for now announced for the 27th of October. So their proposals were that let's proceed and let's look at how we spread the number of people who visit a voting station in one day by increasing the pool of special votes. And that consideration is before the Commission. We have not as yet pronounced on how that would happen, but certainly it is attractive to accommodate all the 60-year-olds and above and the 50-year-olds and above and those with comorbidities before the actual voting day, just to be in line with the things we've learned with the existence of the pandemic that we are in.
All right. Plenty to still think about, and I imagine there'll be more conversations around the budgetary constraints that you are currently under. I know there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to speak, so perhaps we'll reserve the conversation or that leg of the conversation for our next engagement. Let me thank you for now. Really appreciate your sharing with us what you can. That there is Mawethu Mosery, the IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Thanks very much indeed once again.